We begin our first day in Istanbul walking around the Old Town. First we're going to the Grand Bazaar. The Grand Bazaar is one of the largest and oldest covered markets in the world. With more than 50 streets and 5,000 shops, it has a maze-like floor plan. The bazaar has been an important trading center since the 15th century. Leaving the bazaar, we're going to visit one of the first of many mosques that we'll see, the Mosque of Suleiman the Magnificent. Inside the courtyard is a cemetery with turban-topped gravestones. Built in the 16th century, this is the second largest mosque in the city. The interior is a large open space. Semi-domes flank the main dome, which is 173 feet high with a diameter of 90 feet. There are 138 windows. The chandeliers are low and dim, so it gives you an idea of what it was like when it was lit with candles. After Mark gets his shoes on, we exit the courtyard through a different gate. Once part of the mosque complex, these are now shops and restaurants. Our next goal is to find the spice market. We find the brick minaret mentioned in our guidebook and continue down the crowded narrow streets. Passing interesting shops, through alleyways. After passing the store with the hunting rifle, we're almost there. This is the spice market. Built in the 17th century, it's lined with merchant stalls and filled with the aroma of exotic spices. Exiting the spice market, we're in a busy square. This square was once a huge outdoor bazaar. Kinda looks like it still is. The new mosque of Mother Sultan is on the opposite end of the square. That's the Galata Bridge that crosses the Golden Horn. And from here you can take a cruise on the Bosphorus. Fishermen line the top deck of the bridge, while the bottom deck is full of restaurants. And you could see this on both sides of the bridge. We hear that you can get a fish sandwich right off the boat, so we did. Mackerel was the catch of the day. Across the bridge is the new district, where we're going to next. We begin in Taksim Square by the monument to Ataturk. This is the main street through the new district. This shop is known for its Turkish Delight candy. One of the first movie theaters in Istanbul. Turkish ice cream made with goat's milk. This 205-foot stone tower is known as the Galata Tower, part of a 14th century fortification It has been used as a fire tower, barracks, and dungeon. Heading back to the Galata Bridge, we make our way back to the Old Town, where we visit the 6th century underground cistern. There are hundreds of columns. The bases of 2 of the columns reuse blocks carved with the head of Medusa. We spend today with our guide. This is the Bayezid Mosque.
Before praying, you come here and you wash your hands, you wash your face and foot, then you get in the mosque. The 4 big columns, they call them elephant's legs. So the main one is standing on these 4 columns, and they were also building a niche, a nave to the front, which is called mihrab. Stairs, they are called minber. The imam goes up from these stairs and he makes his speech from here on Fridays. Friday is special day for Muslims.
This shows the schedule of services. The Column of Constantine, brought from the Temple of Apollo in Rome in the 4th century. This was the site of the Hippodrome, the sporting and social center of Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire. The road follows the course of the chariot racing track. This obelisk was brought from Egypt from the Temple of Karnak in the 4th century and erected inside the racing track. Also brought here in the 4th century from Delphi, the Serpentine Column shows how far below ground the Hippodrome lies. The 17th century Sultan Ahmed Mosque. With 6 minarets, it is a popular tourist attraction. Known as the Blue Mosque for the blue tiles covering the walls of the interior, it is lined with more than 20,000 handmade ceramic tiles. The Hagia Sophia, once a basilica, a mosque, and now a museum, we enter through the imperial gate. Built in the 6th century by Emperor Justinian, the interior is immense and ornate with mosaic images and designs on virtually every wall. The central dome has a diameter of 102 feet and a height of 184 feet. The Mimbar, alabaster urns from the Hellenistic era. Behind the kiddies, the minrab that indicates the direction of Mecca. We go up the ramp to the 2nd level and get a better view from the upper balcony. Beyond the marble door, we get a closer look at the 11th century mosaics. This one is considered the best, even though it's badly deteriorated. This is what it originally looked like. In this one, symbolizing an imperial donation to the church, our guide said that each time an emperor died, the face was changed to depict the new emperor. Done 100 years later, this is said to have a more realistic-looking portraits. A closer look at one of the mosaics on the ceiling before we leave. For dinner, our guide picks out this restaurant. After dinner, we walk by sites we've already seen, but they look so pretty with their lights on. Tonight we're taking the overnight train to Ankara, the capital of Turkey. Luckily, we have sleeper cars. Our first stop in Ankara is the Mausoleum of Ataturk, the founder and first president of the Republic of Turkey. The Hall of Honor and the location of Ataturk's tomb. The Ceremonial Plaza that could hold up to 15,000 people. The Road of Lions, an 850-foot-long pedestrian walkway. There's a special ceremony happening today. This statue represents a Turkish soldier, an intellectual, and a peasant. And opposite is a statue of 3 women in Turkish national costumes. This is a part of the changing of the guard ceremony. Inside the Hall of Honor, the ceiling is inlaid with gold tiles, and Ataturk is buried under this sarcophagus. Time for some group photos as we leave, and go to the Anatolian Civilizations Museum that contains artifacts from the Stone Age, including exhibits from every civilization that passed through Asia Minor until the present day. On our way to Cappadocia, we stop at the second largest lake in Turkey, which also happens to be a salt lake. In the dry season, it's a salt flat.
Salt is actually unusual. You rub it on and rinse it off, and it feels like, I don't know, you put some kind of lotion on.
Time for another group shot. In Cappadocia, our hotel is quite unique. This is the main courtyard. To get to our room, we go up these stairs, passing an oddly decorated wall, down these steps, up these steps, past the terrace with a pretty view, until we finally get to our room. We practically needed a map to find it. Tonight our guide has arranged for us to have a Turkish bath. Sorry, no cameras inside. Next we're having dinner with a local family. This is our hostess. The next morning some of our group rode on hot air balloons. We watched from the terrace. Cappadocia is best known for its unique moon-like landscape, underground cities, cave churches, and houses carved in rocks. This site is called Monk's Valley. The conical formations, called fairy chimneys, are the result of volcanic eruptions that took place millions of years ago, along with eons of wind and water erosion. Another valley has some animal-shaped rocks. That's supposed to be a camel. Our next stop is to the Three Sisters, often seen in advertisements. They look like they're wearing hats. Cappadocia is also known for Turkish rugs, and we learn how they're made.
Two reasons. First of all, this is a very old tradition going way back BC and needs herbs and roots and different plants to get together, which is only here in the very fertile ground of Anatolia, Kala. And in fact, indigo is a plant and the color will be green. If you take it from water, it will change first to yellow and then to blue. It's called oxidization, like henna from green to red. This is what we call buckthorn, B-U-C-K, a herb again local, giving gold to brown colors depending on time of boiling in the pot. This is what we call madder root for the rest of Burgundy. You can see the walnut shells, can you?
Yeah.
Yep. For the brown colors, but mostly dark browns. But also we grow tobacco. From tobacco you can get from brown to terracotta, cobalt, a mineral. And also we have something exclusive called saffron.
A real silk rug will show color changes according to the light reflections.
See that?
They hand spin the wool. Weaving is a tedious process.
But just two ways to make a carpet. It is made with what we call Turkish double knot. If it's not from here, from elsewhere, it is made with a Persian single knot. That's why if you buy from Morocco, they will never call it Moroccan carpet, it doesn't exist. It is a Persian rug. If you want to make a single knot, you take two of these vertical threads and make only one knot, like the name says, single knot. You skip a second knot to save from time and wool and labor, which is good. But then there's a small complication. If you pull, this is going to happen. Never as easy as this, but it will happen eventually. If you make a double knot from Turkey, again you make a knot, but now you spend more time and of course use more wool to make a second knot because we care for durability first. If you look carefully, she pulls, it doesn't come off. She cuts, that's the only way to untie a Gordian knot or a Turkish double knot. For every carpet, there is a scissors. And this is what they spin, the cocoon. It looks very small, doesn't it? But the length is like 1.2 kilometers. So, look, if it's like an egg, it's a boy. If it's like a peanut, like this one, it's a girl. Look, this is the dream girl.
The waist.
See, there's a perfect proportion. I would say the waist. There's a better girl over here. You see that?
And finally the sales pitch. One by one, carpets are laid on the floor until it's totally covered. And you get to try them out. Not wanting to buy a carpet, we walked around until it was time to visit the Göreme Open Air Museum.
You'll visit like 4 churches in this place. You'll keep your tickets and then we'll see another one called Buckle Church at the exit. And we'll talk about Cappadocian people. They used to live here in the rock houses. We told about them. They were also believing Jesus. They were Christians, but they were under the control of Romans before, until 6th century. Also in 3rd century we know that the Christianity became the official religion. Then they started to build these rock-cut churches. Why do you think that there are more than 600 churches in this region?
I don't know. It's a good question. Because they were hiding them.
No. The priests and the monks, they were not paying taxes to the government. This is the baptism place, the Baptist part, and we will see the church on the other side. And here we will see Jesus and a small boy. This is probably, he was the donor of the church or he was the painter of the frescoes. He's up behind them. And we learn about Saint Helena and Constantine. They immigrated to Jerusalem and they found the true cross. And they
Next we're going to an overlook, where there is plenty to buy. Charms on this tree have been purchased by tourists and left here for good luck. I guess that's good luck for the vendor. A temple carved in stone. Our last look at this unique place. Cappadocia is also known for its pottery.
Also, we'll show you all the stages. You see the shaping on the kick wheel, on the traditional wheel. If you like, also one of you can try. If you are good, we keep you here. Okay? Now he's shaping the stand part of the plate. It's upside down.
With the sponge, was that taken off?
Yes, and then they smooth surface because we make designs on it. After this process, then they are ready to fire. But it's hard to find wood in this area. So they use hay, straw, grape seeds. We have lots of grapes. 200 designers from housewives and local people, because here is a pottery town. So most of the local families still continue this art at their houses here. That's why so we work together. And then we color the plates. We use water-based and oxide colors. Blue is cobalt. Also we use magnesium iron oxide for coloring it. So our productions also can be used for serving because our glaze is lead free.
What are you going to make?
Sugar wall.
You see when it kicks 5-6 times, the wheel keeps going, it's spinning. Because today we use ball bearings underneath, so it turns easily.
Oh, okay.
But our grandfathers, they used wooden bearings, so they always had to kick the wheel. Is much more harder.
Yeah.
And whenever they kick it, also sometimes it catch fire.
Really?
He started this art when he was around 12 years old. And the hardest part is to fit the lid.
Yeah. Of course.
Yes.
Need some help there?
15 minutes.
Now what is Mark gonna make? Same thing?
Sugar bowl.
Covered clay, up and down.
What did you say?
Take that a little shorter. So
Way to go, Mark. Ew, let's
Yes.
be even.
What do you want to make?
A flower pot looks good.
Yes.
There's a bunch of comedians in this room.
Like me.
I think you have a hidden talent.
Tonight is dinner and a cultural show. Did I mention all the alcohol you wanted was included with dinner? This is one of our traveling companions, and tonight is his 50th birthday. are in Selçuk, and this is the 6th century Basilica of St. John. It was a basilica in Ephesus. It's believed that John fled here from Jerusalem, where he remained for the rest of his life and wrote his Gospels. The brick foundations and marble walls have been partially reconstructed. Our guide told us that some of the columns here are from the Artemis Temple. This is said to be the site of St. John's tomb. That's the Mosque of Isa Bey, where we're going to next. It is one of the oldest examples of Turkish-style mosques. With a courtyard in the front and columns inside, it's different from the mosques we've seen in Istanbul. This is the site of the Temple of Artemis, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Some stacked remains recreate columns, and many artifacts related to the temple have been recovered, but nothing remains of the structure itself. Ephesus, an ancient Greek city and later a major Roman city. It contains the largest collection of Roman ruins in the eastern Mediterranean, with only about 15% excavated. The Upper Agora, the official part of town. The entrance to a small theater where the government council met, and it was also used as a concert hall. The temples of the imperial cult, which never became a true religion. Official receptions and banquets were held here. The Memmius Monument, a memorial to Memmius, a soldier. The Gate of Hercules. The Domitian Temple, built in honor of Emperor Domitian, who ruled during the 1st century. Nike, the goddess of victory. One of the 3 main streets, Curettes Street, took its name from the priests called Curettes. The Trajan Fountain, once filled with water from the hillside. The terrace houses, where the rich lived, had heating systems and hot and cold running water. The Temple of Hadrian. The oldest flush toilets in the world had constantly running water. The Gate of Augustus and the Library of Celsus. The statues at the library are copies, but the facade was reconstructed from all original pieces. Passing under the gate, we enter the commercial agora that was once full of shops. There are a lot of pieces waiting to be assembled. The Great Theater, a hillside amphitheater that could seat 25,000. St. Paul delivered sermons here to the Ephesians in the early Christian era. Harbor Street, which led to the harbor. And every hour, a show for the tourists. Back in town, we have time to walk around before lunch. Remnants of an aqueduct with stork nests on the top. Notice all the men at the cafe. They spend their afternoons at cafes playing board games. We are in Şirince, which used to be a Greek village. We try some local wine and olive oil. We have some free time to explore and walk around the shops and stalls filled with handmade crafts. St. John's Church, a Greek Orthodox church that is being restored. Most of these houses were built when this was predominantly a Greek village. this be a taxi? Back in Selçuk, at this leather store, you just don't look at the jackets. You have a fashion show. This model is Catalina from our group. Next up is Hassan. Tonight, at a local bar, we play tile running and smoke nargile, the Turkish water pipe. Troy, the ancient city made famous by Homer's Iliad, was destroyed and rebuilt 9 times. And each of 9 different layers still has something left to this day. The city walls, ruins of the Temple of Athena. Unlike Ephesus, use your imagination. The original excavation trench, the citadel, stones at the base are the original pieces. A stone ramp at the entrance to the city. The sanctuary, an important religious center in its time. Roman baths, a small Roman amphitheater, and finally, what we really came to see, the Trojan horse. Well, a replica of it. This is Çanakkale, a college town outside Troy and our last stop in Turkey. This Trojan horse was used in the movie Troy. Lights from Gallipoli. Here's our ferry that will begin our journey back to Istanbul. Passing Gallipoli. And as we approach the dock, it's time to say goodbye to Turkey, because tomorrow we'll be in Cairo. We're in Cairo, and this is Tahrir Square, site of the January 2011 Egyptian Revolution. Calm for the time being. This is the Tahrir Bridge that crosses the Nile. We didn't walk around much in Cairo. Tahrir Square is just beyond one end of this bridge, and our hotel was on the opposite end. Our hotel seems out of place in a residential area. Fortunately, there's a restaurant around the corner. Pizza seems to be the specialty. A little different in look and taste, but it was good. Just behind Tahrir Square is the Egyptian Museum, home to a huge collection of Egyptian antiquities. Its collection spans 5,000 years and has an exhibit dedicated to King Tut. No cameras are allowed inside. This building near the museum was damaged during the revolution. A lunch break before going to the pyramids. We're driving from Cairo to Giza, where the pyramids are located. There's always lots of traffic in Cairo. Here's our first glimpse at the pyramids. At the end of the street is the entrance to the site. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the oldest and largest of the three. It is the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. These aren't tourist police, they're just here for photos. The entrance to the Great Pyramid. It's obvious that the revolution has taken a toll on tourism. Walking around the pyramids, we come to one of several boat pits. That's one of the smaller satellite pyramids, and it's the one we're going to enter. There's really not much to see. We drove here for a classic view of the pyramids. If you look really hard, there are the step pyramids at Saqqara. And to the right is an actual tourist policeman. The Great Sphinx of Giza, one of the world's largest and oldest statues. That's the Citadel of Cairo, our next stop. Inside the Citadel is the Mosque of Muhammad Ali. This Ottoman mosque, the largest to be built in the first half of the 19th century, is the most visible mosque in Cairo. Neatly trimmed, it says Allah. An alabaster fountain in the courtyard. If this looks similar to mosques we've seen in Turkey, there's a good reason. It was designed as a reproduction of the best mosques found in Istanbul. With its location on a hill, there's an excellent view of the city. On a clear day, it said you could see the pyramids. We're leaving the Citadel, and our next stop will be Islamic Cairo, famous for its open-air markets. Begun in the 1300s, the Khan el-Khalili Bazaar is one of the oldest markets in Egypt. Also the site of terrorist attacks, we were accompanied by a guard. We walked until we reached the medieval gate. Also near the bazaar is the Al-Hussein Mosque, considered one of the holiest Islamic sites in Cairo. At this cafe, where these two never stopped arguing, we took a break. We're passing through a more modern section of Cairo. We find a place to relax, because tonight we're going to take an overnight train to Aswan, and unlike Istanbul, the Cairo train station doesn't have a nice waiting area. Nor is the train as nice. This morning we arrived in Aswan and were going to the Temple of Philae on the west bank of the Nile. It is the home of the temple dedicated to the goddess Isis. Originally built in the 3rd century BC on Philae Island, it was dismantled and relocated here because of the construction of the Aswan Dam. The colonnades of the walkway to the first pylon of the temple. Hieroglyphics and carvings are everywhere. Many show the king making an offering to the gods. This shows the king overcoming his enemies and worshipping the goddess Isis. The second pylon depicts the king making an offering to Isis and Horus. The Temple of Hathor, goddess of love, music, and beauty. Crosses carved on the pillar are from the Coptic Christian occupation. This is the Kiosk of Trajan, originally the main entrance to the temple from the river. Before the construction of the dam, this was the original site of the temple. A view of the Kiosk of Trajan as we leave. The Aswan Low Dam. We're going to a Nubian village tonight for dinner. Those cruise ships go to Luxor from here. The ride takes quite a while. After we get off the boat, our first stop is a demonstration of hand weaving. This is the local home where we have dinner, and this is our host. It's Mark's birthday, and our guide arranged to have this cake. After dinner, you could get a henna tattoo. Before leaving the village, we stopped at a shop where everything is handmade, but the main attraction is upstairs, a Nile crocodile. Mark took his turn holding it. I'm not quite sure why he has it on his head. Back to our hotel. We won't get much sleep tonight. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is our police-escorted convoy to Abu Simbel. It's about a 4-hour ride, with not much to see on the way. The temples of Abu Simbel used to be further down the hill, but due to the rising waters of Lake Nasser, they were moved to their current location. The temples were reassembled on a fake mountain that looks like solid rock. Built by Ramses II, the Sun Temple features 4 statues of himself. The 67-foot statues were intended to scare potential enemies. The small temple is dedicated to Ramses' favorite wife, Nefertari. At the entrance are 6 33-foot rock-cut statues, 2 of Ramses and 1 of Nefertari on either side of the doorway. Back at the hotel, the maids have been busy. The view from our room. We walk through the bazaar on our way to dinner. Today we will spend the day cruising the Nile on a felucca. And also, this is where we will be sleeping for the night. A felucca is a traditional wooden sailing boat. They have been used on the Nile for centuries. On shore, where these goats and donkeys are, is where we'll be stopping for lunch. That's what they call the mother boat, where we have our meals. Back on board, we continue to sail down the Nile. This shore excursion is an opportunity to swim in the Nile. We sail on until it's time to dock for the night. This morning, leaving our felucca, we are transported by car to Luxor. Our felucca ride didn't get us very far. It's still about 3 more hours by car before we arrive in Luxor. Our hotel overlooks the Luxor Temple, which we will see later. Karnak is a temple complex built around 1500 BC. To enter, you pass ram-headed sphinxes. Constructed over a period of 1300 years by about 30 different pharaohs, it became the religious center dedicated to the sun god, Amun-Ra. Over 30 feet tall, a statue of Ramses and his daughter. Most impressive are the columns, over 100 of them, over 20 feet tall, arranged in rows. The walls are covered with reliefs and inscriptions, and there are numerous statues. 2 obelisks remain. The taller one, erected by Queen Hatshepsut, is 97 feet tall. Walking around the scarab beetle 7 times is good luck. Luxor Temple, like Karnak, was built by several different pharaohs starting around 1300 BC, and it is also dedicated to the sun god. A pink granite obelisk, one of a pair. The other one is in Paris. This mosque was built in the 19th century before Karnak was excavated. All the statues are Ramses II. Ramses' sons, he had almost 50. The court of Amenhotep with double rows of pillars. The colonnade. This morning we have a special treat. We are riding these donkeys to the Valley of the Kings. We leave our donkeys and cameras here. The Valley of the Kings is up there. Notice the pyramid-shaped peak. There are tombs of more than 60 pharaohs here. Instead of donkeys, we use these to get to our next stop. the Temple of Hatshepsut. You can see some tombs in the mountainside. The temple honors the longest ruling female pharaoh. A tourist policeman. In 1997, 58 tourists were killed here by terrorists. Statues of the Queen. A statue of Horus as a falcon. In the distance, you can see the Nile. The Colossus of Memnon, 60-foot tall statues of Amenhotep. It's our last day in Luxor, and as we pack, I take a final look from our room. It looks like a riot, but they're just catching a cab. And as the sun sets over the Nile, the call to prayer from many mosques begins. After another overnight train and a little bit of a drive, we're on the road to Mount Sinai. A quick break, and a lot more driving. We finally reach our hotel, which looks a lot better from the outside. The rooms were pretty bad. We're hiking to the top of Mount Sinai this afternoon, so while we wait for the group, we check out the shops. This is where we begin our hike. The road takes us up past St. Catherine's Monastery, which we'll visit tomorrow. Those are the residences of the Greek Orthodox monks. You could take a camel part of the way. We'd rather walk. That's our goal. Our first rest stop. Another rest stop. Halfway there. We're starting to get tired, but we're almost there. Just beyond that ravine, the steps begin. We didn't count them, but they told us there are 750 of them. Seemed like a lot more. The summit is about 7,500 feet. I wonder if Moses had to come all the way up here for the Ten Commandments. The chapel supposedly encloses the rock from which God made them. As the sun goes down, it's time for us to begin our hike back down. It was dark long before we made it to the bottom. This is St. Catherine's Monastery. It's been called the oldest working Christian monastery in the world. Frequent attacks starting in the 15th century caused the gates to be walled off, and the only way in and out was a pulley system. This is the site of the burning bush where God spoke to Moses. It's supposedly a descendant of the original burning bush. In here is the Well of Moses. According to legend, this is where Moses met his wife. The bell tower. The entry to the church. After visiting the monastery, we're going to the Red Sea, where we'll spend our last day in Egypt relaxing by the beach. That's the Red Sea and the Suez Canal out there. We'll drive under the canal. Our beachfront hotel. Our host shows us where to see the coral, and on the opposite shore is Saudi Arabia. Later there's a game of beach volleyball. Tonight is my birthday. We're at the ferry terminal. We're taking the ferry to Jordan, and so is everyone else. Many trucks are also loaded on. The fast ferry takes 2 hours, and the slow ferry takes 6 hours. We didn't know we were on the slow ferry until we had been sailing for over 3 hours. Finally, our ferry from Egypt arrives in Aqaba, Jordan. We'll only be in Aqaba for a few hours today, so early this morning we'll go for a walk. That's Israel across the water. The 430-foot tall Aqaba flagpole is the second tallest freestanding flagpole in the world. On our way to Wadi Rum, we learned that phosphates and potash are Jordan's main natural resources, transported by trains like this. This is the Bedouin camp in Wadi Rum, where we'll spend the night. Our bathrooms, our eating area, and our bedrooms. And a playground for Mark. It's time for our desert jeep tour. Wadi Rum is where British officer T.E. Lawrence based his operations for the Arab Revolt during the First World War, and where Lawrence of Arabia was filmed. Petroglyphs of a camel caravan on the cliff face. Inside the Bedouin tent, where the flies are relentless, we have some tea.
This is the tea that we make here in Jordan, the black tea, the chai. And you can see the flavor. It's sage, it's cinnamon, cardamom. We mix it together and put it like flavor. Okay?
Our tour continues for 2 more hours, and we stop at one of the natural rock arches. We all got to scramble to the top and enjoy the view. There's water here. At our last stop, we gather wood for the fire, where our guides will make tea. We'll stay here until the sun begins to set. Back at camp, they've been preparing our dinner.
Actually, our dinner for tonight it's called zarb. And zarb, it's an Arabic word, it means cooking underground. As you know that the Bedouin, they are so kind and very generous. So they had many ways just to show respect for their guests. One of these ways, actually, you can see it, it's the cooking underground. And because, as you know, that the lamb meat takes longer, that's why they would put it in the bottom. After that, the chicken, then on the top, the vegetables. Cooking underground.
After dinner, there is music. More water pipe smoking, or shisha as they call it here, and dancing. Today we are in Wadi Musa. The ancient city of Petra is hidden someplace in there. This is Little Petra, in many ways a miniature replica of Petra. It has a sampling of ancient tombs and temples. This tomb stands at the entrance. Once inside, there's a temple, ceremonial dining halls, and residences. Centuries of soot blacken the ceiling. There are seats carved into the wall. All through Little Petra are rock-cut stairs. And so we leave Little Petra. Tomorrow we will visit the ancient city of Petra. We walk to the entrance to Petra, passing tourist shops. If you saw Indiana Jones, you may recognize some of the sights we'll see. Petra was first established sometime around the 6th century BC by the Nabateans. The first rock-cut tombs we see. These are called the obelisk tombs and contain 5 graves. It's about a 20-minute walk before we reach the canyon walls known as the Siq. You could take one of these carriages. Water channels line the walls. Walking through the Siq, we pass niches, shrines, and carvings. Our guide is telling us that this might have been an altar for marriages, spaces for the bride and groom, and opposite them a carving of goddesses. Once we pass through here, we get our first view of the treasury. Constructed in the 1st century BC, it is carved out of solid rock and over 130 feet high. The purpose of the treasury remains a mystery. It is believed to be a temple or a royal tomb, but neither conclusion is certain. The decorations carved above the columns. Carvings representing Nabatean gods and goddesses. There's a huge natural courtyard surrounding the treasury. There's a lot more to see. This is called the Street of the Facades. The color of the rock is truly amazing. Those stairs lead to the high place of sacrifice. Whether these are tombs or houses is still a matter of debate. Once again, the rock color is stunning. The theater, which can hold about 4,000 people. We check out this structure. I don't know if it's a tomb or a residence, but either way, it has a great view. We're almost to the royal tombs. This one is called the Urn Tomb, with shopping right next door. The royal tombs overlook the city. There are some of the other royal tombs. Time for a break. We get a drink. Hey look, it's Johnny Depp. Okay, that really wasn't Johnny Depp. It's just a popular look around here. We're walking to the colonnaded street. That's a 400-year-old pistachio tree. The paved road and the columns are from the Roman period. The Great Temple. Columns that haven't been reconstructed. An elephant head at the top of a column. The arched gate. This temple was dedicated to the main Nabatean god. From here, we climb the 800-plus steps to the monastery. We stopped here for a break. Just a few more steps to go. Arriving at this large open area, we made it to the monastery, which is actually a tomb with the largest facade in Petra. Getting in and out is difficult. From here, we followed a path to the lookout point. Supposedly, you could even see Israel from here, but not on a hazy day like this. We head back down. Our last stop is a 5th century Byzantine church to see the mosaics. Driving on the King's Highway, we pass Shobak Castle, a Crusader fortress from the 12th century. Below it are 500-year-old houses. We're in Karak to see the Karak Castle, another 12th century Crusader castle. Under the control of Deschantion, prisoners were thrown off the walls into the valley with a wooden box over their heads so they wouldn't pass out before hitting the ground. We enter the fortress through the vaulted passageway. There are thick defensive walls, underground rooms, and secret passageways. The citadel. With bow and arrow, the Crusaders held out for over 100 years. Leaving town, we learned that the goat's heads in front of the butcher shop are an indication of fresh meat. This is Hadrian's Arch at the entrance to Jerash, famous for its Roman ruins. The Hippodrome, where chariot races and other sporting events were held. The South Gate, where you enter the city. The city walls. The Oval Plaza with a colonnade of 1st century Ionic columns. The theater, and we even have entertainment. From here you could really appreciate the size of the Oval Plaza. From the plaza, there's a colonnaded street called the Cardo that would have been filled with shops. A cross street to the Cardo. That's the remains of 3 churches that were built on top of each other, and the floor is still covered with a mosaic. This is the Temple of Artemis, a place of sacrifice. 11 of the 12 front columns remain. Keep your eye on the spoon. We get a demo of how the column moves. This is the gateway to the Temple of Dionysus. And finally, we make it to the Cardo. This 2nd century fountain was dedicated to the nymphs. And if you're wondering what those little black things are, they're huge centipedes. Today we are in Madaba, at a Greek Orthodox church. It's known for its 6th century mosaic map, a map of the Middle East showing the Holy Land. There are over 2 million pieces of colored stone in the map. Now we're heading for Mount Nebo. On the way to Mount Nebo, we stop at a mosaic shop. We've seen so many mosaics in Jordan, we get to see how they are made today. The finished product is not cheap. This is Mount Nebo, where Moses was allowed to see the Holy Land before his death. Nowadays, the mountain is a memorial site. Ever since the first days of Christianity, This mountain has been a holy place and a destination for pilgrimages. This olive tree was planted by Pope John Paul II. Like Moses, on a clear day, you could see Jordan, the Dead Sea, and Israel. We are almost at the Dead Sea, which we almost missed seeing because the World Economic Organization was here for the weekend and the entire place was closed to the public. The Dead Sea is the lowest point on Earth, more than 1,300 feet below sea level. It is almost 9 times saltier than the ocean. No plants or fish can survive in the water due to the high salt content. Mark will demonstrate its buoyancy properties. One of the world's first health resorts, it was thought to have healing properties. And for about $5, you can have someone cover you in mud. After using the outside shower to get the salt water off, a dip in the pool ensures you've got it all. This was more fun than I thought it would be. This is Amman. We're going to the Citadel, the site of the earliest fortifications known in the world. Located at the top of Amman's highest hill, there's a great view of the city. In the 3rd century BC, Amman was known as Philadelphia. The remains of a 6th century Byzantine church. This cistern could hold about 250,000 gallons of water. The 7th century palace complex. The Temple of Hercules. At sunset, another call to prayer. The green lights on the minarets of the mosques shine. Tomorrow we'll be going home.